Sorry, folks. Some of you are like, where did you go? Hey, Luigi. Thanks so much for hopping on this live, folks. So, all right. Sorry, guys, just making sure I'm not missing something here. So, folks, I'm really excited to get on. And share something that I really truly believe can make an impact. All right, I'm going to be talking about something that affects 93% of us. I feel like there's a lot of police activity outside. I can hear it. And so, I'm going to be talking about something that literally affects more than 90% of us. And most people don't even know that they have this. It's called insulin resistance. And folks, if you happen to be struggling with your health, okay, we're going to talk about this, okay? Before I really get into the meat of what I want to talk about, if you guys wouldn't mind dropping your location in this chat, okay? Let me know where you guys are tuning in from, okay? I love getting on here, and most importantly, I love helping people. I always thought growing up that I wanted to be a police officer, and I feel like that was like the career choice that I felt like I wanted to do. And I'm so grateful and grateful for those that are in public safety, right? I hope that that you guys stay safe, but I'm very grateful for what I do because I really feel like what I do makes an impact. And Miss Benitez, how are you, Miss Benitez? So good to have you on. Gary, how are you doing, man? And so for those of you that have never been on this live before, I want to thank you for hopping on this live, okay? Very grateful to be here. I feel like I need to clear my nostrils, though. I don't know if you guys have ever used this, but this stuff is a game changer. Boom, boom. Oh, here. You guys can't see that. Boom, boom. It just helps to like clear the nostrils. My allergies are really bad. But so as you guys jump into this live, Christopher Carrillo, thank you for hopping on it. Let me know where you guys are tuning in from. Okay, drop your city or state. And folks, if your health is not where you want it to be, stay with me. Okay. This really could be one of the most important conversations that you hear this year. If you know somebody who's struggling with their health, go ahead and share this live with them so that they can hop on, they can listen, they can ask questions. Christopher, thank you. Okay. I'm going to share some personal things with you, and I hope that what I share helps you to avoid the same mistakes that I've made. And Ellie, thank you. God bless you. Okay. My goal is to help share something that can make an impact. Okay. So thank you for trusting me in hopping on this live. Okay. You know, Solomon said in the Bible, in all your gaining, gain understanding. And gaining understanding around how the body actually works completely changed my life because I didn't know what insulin resistance is, right? And I think the majority of us don't know what insulin resistance is, right? Even though it affects 93% of us. And so as I stay in this live, okay, feel free to drop any questions that you guys might have. Okay, Janet, thank you for hopping on. Okay. And we're going to talk about some things that, you know, could very well make a really big impact in your life, right? For most of my life, I dealt with health issues and I had no idea that they were all connected to each other, right? Some of you know my story, some of you don't. But back in November of 2014, I donated a kidney to my sister's husband. And I'm very grateful for that. But it was 7 years later when I was diagnosed with stage 4 kidney disease. And my nephrologist said, Troy, if you don't lose weight, if you don't change your diet, if you don't boom, 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 do these things, you're going to end up on dialysis or worse. And so I was prescribed meds, right? And none of it worked, right? It just made me sick. And it wasn't until 2.5 years later when I actually learned what insulin resistance was. Folks, if you don't know what insulin resistance is, it's associated with things like weight struggles, right? How many of you have the excess belly fat? Okay. How many of us have blood sugar issues? How many of us have hormone imbalances, cardiovascular risk? You know, the crazy thing is that the shocking part is that most people are never directly tested for it, and most people don't even know that it's even there. Now, I've had close calls with my health, as I'm sure that you guys have. Once I finally understood what was happening metabolically, everything started to make sense. And over the past 2 years, I have been able to improve my health, and I'm grateful for that. Now, here's something that surprised me. Okay. When you go to a doctor and your cholesterol is elevated, what happens? Right? Meds are usually often discussed and prescribed, right? But think about this. How many millions of people around the world are affected by these issues? Right? How many of us were taught to have 3 meals a day and a snack 2 to 3 times a day? This eating pattern has become ingrained in our daily routine. And the reality is that, look around you, the majority of the people around us are struggling with their health, and most people literally have no idea why. And at the end of the day, right, far too often, all we are doing is we're throwing medications that are symptoms, but it doesn't fix the root cause. Right? Some of you might know, okay, let me put this behind me. Okay. I don't use this very often, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use this tonight. Okay, why not? Okay. Okay. Some of you can see this. I know some of you can't. Okay. But when we think about this, okay, 93% of people in the United States have what is called insulin resistance. Right? How many of you have cravings or headaches or sleep apnea or diabetes or belly FAT or weight issues or skin issues? How many of you are tired all the time? Right? How many of us have erectile dysfunction? How many women have PCOS, right? It's the leading cause of infertility for women. What about high triglycerides or high cholesterol, high blood pressure? Okay, these are just a small sample of some of the health issues that most of us have. And here's why this conversation matters tonight. In the United States, over 90% of people are metabolically unhealthy. Nearly 3 out of 4 people are overweight or obese. More than half of our country is diabetic or pre-diabetic. We're even seeing these issues show up earlier in kids and teens. Now, this isn't a personal failure. This is a metabolic environment problem, right? You know how the Bible tells us that no good tree bears bad fruit. Well, the fruit is high cholesterol, fatigue, blood pressure, blood sugar issues, hormone problems, right? And but the root is often insulin resistance. And if we never address the root, the fruit is going to keep coming back. Now, as I'm talking, I want you guys to be thinking about your own health. Okay, drop a 1 in the chat if energy or weight has been a struggle for you. Drop a 2 in the chat if maybe your cholesterol or blood pressure has come up, right? And if you crave sugar and salt and you're tired all the time, put the number 3 in the chat, okay? I want you guys to know you're not alone. And you're certainly not broken. And if anybody has ever, thank you for those that you're putting the numbers in there, okay? For those of you, if you've ever been told that it's your fault, number 1, it's not. Okay, we're going to talk about that for a second. Okay, you're not broken. Okay, insulin resistance is something that can be improved, right? And this is why I teach and educate people on what insulin resistance is, because knowledge is power. It will help to empower you to understand what it is. Number 1, I think it's important for us to understand why we have these health issues, but I think it's just as important, if not more important, to understand what you can do to fix it. Okay. What I'm going to do is I teach people 2 things, 2 simple foundations that can help support insulin sensitivity. Okay. And I'm going to share a nutraceutical. Okay. It's listed here in the TikTok shop. Okay. It's called the Feel Great System. And there's a reason why I teach this, because it's absolutely amazing. Okay. So let's talk about insulin for a second. Okay. Insulin is a hormone that acts like a key, right? You need a key to unlock your car. You need a key to unlock your house. So I want you to think of insulin. It's the gatekeeper to our cells, okay? And it's what unlocks our cells and allows the sugar, the glucose from the foods that you and I have eaten for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or whatever, to be used as energy, okay? Now, I also think of insulin as an Uber driver, because what it does is it'll go and pick up the glucose out of your bloodstream and it will take it to your cells. And this is where your cells will take it in and use it for energy. But when you become resistant to insulin's knock at the door, guess what happens? Okay. The cells are no longer communicating. And Lisa, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay. So, folks, right now, more than half of our country, it's crazy, is either diabetic or pre-diabetic. And nearly 3 out of 4, 74% to be exact, of people are overweight or obese. Think about cardiovascular disease. Think about autoimmune conditions and fatty liver and neuropathy and migraines. And I mean, think about some of the things that maybe you've been struggling with. When you go to a doctor, okay, is your doctor helping you to fix it without the need for meds? How many of you understand why your A1C is high? How many of you, here's what happens, right? And think about this. Here's the part that no one wants to tell you. If I go to the doctors because I have blood pressure issues, I've got IBS, I've got Crohn's disease, right? I have You know, migraines, I had migraines for 23 years. And let's just say that I go to 3 different doctors. I'm going to pay 3 different copays, and I'm going to walk out with at least 2 to 3 different medications, and not one of them is probably going to touch the root cause at all. If you and I went to a family reunion, right? We have both sides of the family there. The aunts, the uncles, right? Your siblings, your kids, okay? How many people at that family reunion are affected by these health struggles? How many of you know people in your own family that are diabetic or have kidney disease? Or I had stage 4 kidney disease. I'm grateful that I don't have it anymore. Okay. But think about, right, the people that you spend the most time with. What is their health like? Okay. Oops. And Dolphin Whispers, thank you for your, okay, mood swings. Okay. That's a big one. Okay. And you know what's crazy? Is most people experience the warning signs of insulin resistance long before they are ever diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. How many of you have stubborn belly FAT? How many of you feel like everything you're doing just doesn't work? How many of you feel like you're taking one step forward and you take 2 steps back? How many of you feel hungry all the time? How many of you have high blood pressure or cholesterol issues, hormone imbalances, PCOS, low testosterone, right? These are all symptoms of insulin resistance. Now, the reason why I get on here is because most doctors, most medical professionals are not talking about this. And online, thank you for the follow. Thank you to everyone who is tapping the screen, who is sharing this. And thank you to those that have followed me. Okay. And Dolphin Whispers, I think it's totally fine. Right. And Lisa, my heart goes out to you. I can't even imagine, right? My dad actually passed away on Easter Sunday, 2017. Okay. Like, I miss my dad, right? My dad passed away from something that could have and should have been prevented. I had a brother who was 33 years old who, back in January of 2005, unfortunately took his own life. And so I think about this, right? The people all around us. So what can we do? Let's talk solutions, okay? And the thing is, there's 2 things that I teach. The first one is fasting. Time-based eating, okay? What that means is that we're going longer periods of time without thinking about food. Again, how many of us were told that breakfast was the most important meal of the day? Break fast. That's how we get the name breakfast, right? Breaking our fast. Here's the truth. Whether you eat breakfast at 8 o'clock or you eat a meal at 8 o'clock at night, right? 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. What you eat when you break that fast is important because it literally sets the tone for everything else. Now, folks, it's not hard to believe that, companies like this, okay, some of you may have, devoured some of this. I know I certainly have done my fair share of eating cereal as a kid. But this whole idea that cereal for breakfast was the most important meal of the day and that we should have that was brought to you by these 2 brothers. Now, do you guys realize that your body actually runs better when you're not eating first thing in the morning? But see, we have been basically taught at a young age that we should eat these 3 meals a day and we should snack throughout the day. In fact, some of us have been told that in order for us to lose weight, that you've got to eat within 30 minutes of waking up. Okay. But how many of you are foodies? Okay, if you're a foodie, type foodie in the chat. I love food. Okay, and I was that person that was eating these 3 meals a day, and I was snacking literally all day long. And even when the pandemic hit, right? How many of us were now working from home? And it's hard for us to avoid just raiding our pantry. Now, I love food. Okay, I literally have 1 to 2 meals a day. When I started to understand what insulin resistance was and how it affected our body, and not only just affect our body, but how it affects how your body responds and heals, okay? Here's what happens. Every time you and I eat food, especially sugar and especially carbs, what happens is it causes your blood sugar to go up like a roller coaster. And when your blood sugar goes up like a roller coaster, your body releases a hormone called insulin. Okay? Insulin is a FAT storing hormone. Okay? When it is high, your body is constantly storing this. And when it is low, your body is burning it. This is literally how your body starts to lose weight, right? If your goal is to lose weight, this is what you've got to do. You have to address and get your insulin under control. Now, we've even been told to eat smaller meals, right? Because it keeps your metabolism high. And I want you guys to understand this. It doesn't matter if you have a grape or a Snickers bar. Okay? A grape is a sugar bomb, right? And the point I'm making is that when we eat foods that are high in sugar and carbs, okay, it's going to spike like a roller coaster your glucose. Glucose goes up and down like a rabbit. Insulin, on the other hand, it's like a turtle. It moves really, really slow. And believe it or not, when your insulin is way up here and it starts to come down, well, guess what? This is when you're ready to eat again. This is when you're having a snack or you're having lunch, and then you have another snack after lunch, and then a snack before you go home, and then you go home and you have dinner, and then you have a dessert, and maybe 9 o'clock you're watching your favorite show, and you're like, oh, I'm hungry. I need to have popcorn or something, ice cream, right? And the reality is that we are eating all the time. This is what's contributing to most of the health issues that you and I have today. And I can't, like, and Miss Benitez, I love that. Seriously, that makes me so happy. Okay? You have got a great story that people need to hear. Now, folks, as I mentioned, back in November of 2014, I donated my kidney. And being told, years later that the one kidney that I had was failing, that was an eye opener for me. Because I was going to the gym 5 days out of the week, right? I was that person that felt like everything I was doing was right and good enough. But in reality, my body wasn't healing. Now, for those of you that might not have the excess weight, right? Here's something that many people do not realize. You can be thin and still be insulin resistant. You could have high blood pressure. You could have migraines, okay? You could have cravings. You could have sleep issues, okay? You could have skin tags, okay? All of these things are signs of insulin resistance, even without weight gain. And walking is great, Lisa. In fact, folks, you might not know this, but after you eat a meal, just going for a basic 10, 15-minute walk actually is clinically proven to help reduce the glucose spikes. Okay, so just going for a simple walk. I mean, it's exercise, right? And it's giving your body a better chance to heal itself. Now, you're welcome. Most of us were told to move more and eat less. Right? It's the calories in, the calories out approach. And that calorie in, calorie out model sounds logical, But the body does not work like a math equation, because when calories are restricted long term, here's what happens: your metabolism actually slows down. Our body does not work like a math equation, right? So when your metabolism slows down, there's something called sarcopenia that happens in our body. It's called muscle loss, muscle wasting. Okay. Your energy drops, your hormone function declines. And here's the thing: studies going well over 100 years ago show this clearly. Now, here's why I have 1 to 2 meals a day. When you go longer periods of time without eating, your glucose spike doesn't go up. And no glucose spike means that there's no insulin spike. This is magical. Because remember, insulin's job is to move glucose from the foods that we've eaten. Insulin's job is to move that glucose into our cells. But when your insulin stays elevated all day long, guess what happens? Your body will literally become resistant to it. And that is what leads to the FAT storage. This is what leads to inflammation and chronic disease and cardiovascular disease and diabetes and all these other things. Folks, nobody is immune from this. Right? Now, I struggled with fasting. I remember, growing up, even skipping 1 meal, I felt like I was starving. Right? You felt like you were dying as a kid when you're skipping a meal. And folks, I can go 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours without having a meal. And one of the most powerful things that you can actually do to start helping your body to heal, right, and improve insulin sensitivity is going longer periods of time without eating food. And I know that sounds crazy, right? But again, remember, when your body's avoiding food, there is no glucose spike. And this gives your insulin a chance to come down. When insulin comes down, everything changes in your body, folks. Everything does. Okay? Now, there are 3 macronutrients. We have protein, we have fats, and we have carbohydrates. Which one of those is not essential? If you guys wouldn't mind, drop that in the chat. Which one of those is not essential? Drew, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. And thank you to everyone, again, who's chatting, putting the comments in there, who's tapping the screen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that, because every time you do that, you're telling TikTok that this is important information. You're telling social media that this is important information that needs to get out. Now, out of the 3 macronutrients, or the 3 macronutrients, right? Carbs, protein, and fats. Okay. Protein and fats are absolutely essential. The only macronutrient that isn't is carbohydrates. Because here's what happens. Your body actually can create glucose from your stored FAT when insulin is low. And this is how it happens, okay? So folks, this is why I get on here. This is exactly why I teach the Feel Great system, because it is a simple solution to a big problem, right? Think about this. 93% of people are metabolically unhealthy. And far too often when we go to a doctor, we are diagnosing and we are treating the symptoms. How is that working out for you guys? How many of you enjoy being on your meds? How many of you even knew that there was a tool that you could use that could help improve insulin sensitivity without the need for meds or diets or feeling like you have to be on a specific diet for the rest of your life? Okay? This is why I do this. I'm somebody who had stage 4 kidney disease, and I don't have it anymore. Now, there's 2 things I teach: fasting and fiber. Okay? The second step that I want to share with you, and I'm only going to take maybe about 10, 15 more minutes. Okay? Fiber. Let's talk about fiber for a second. okay? Did you know that we get literally less than half the amount of fiber each day that we should have? Here's why fiber is so here's why fiber is so powerful. Because fiber does not turn into glucose. What it does is it actually forms a thick gel in our stomach that helps to slow the digestion and it helps to reduce the glucose spikes. That's what fiber does. And this does it from any of the foods that we eat, right? Especially if there's fiber. This is why eating fiber before your meal or with your meal is so effective. Did you guys know that our food industry back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s started intentionally taking fiber out of our food? It's crazy, right? When fiber is removed from food, your blood sugar spikes, okay, it goes up, insulin rises, okay, your hunger increases, and disease risk skyrockets. This is why this is so important to understand. Knowledge is power, right? Now, there was a doctor, and some of you might recognize or heard this story before. But there was a doctor, okay? Thank you, Janet, I appreciate that, okay? Dr. Francis Pottinger, okay? He was a doctor that literally loved cats, okay? And he studied cats. In fact, he fed these cats 3 different types of foods. He had 3 different groups. He fed raw milk, raw meat in one group, and processed foods, right? The boxed food that you and I eat. Now, the cats who were eating the processed food, guess what? They developed chronic disease. They had reproductive failure, meaning it's crazy that in 3 generations of these cats eating these boxed food, the processed foods that you and I eat, only 1/3 of those cats could make babies. But the other cats that were eating the raw meat and the raw milk, guess what? They were perfectly fine. This just goes to tell you how important it is to get the right foods, right? It just goes to show you how important it is to make sure that we are putting the right things in our body, right? Food quality and fiber are truly important things. Now, the problem today is not a lack of willpower, okay? Hunger. Hunger is stronger than willpower. This is why I teach fasting. And this is why I teach incorporating more fiber into your diet, okay? Because when you do that, okay, it helps to lower your glucose, helps to lower your insulin, okay? And this is the key to increasing your insulin sensitivity, okay? And folks, this is why I teach the Feel Great system, right? Your doctor actually can look up the Feel Great system in the physician's desk reference. Some of you might know what that is, okay? Now, I want you guys to think of insulin resistance like a fire that is burning out of control in your body. Okay? Think about all of the symptoms, skin issues. Okay? Think about migraines, headaches, PCOS, erectile dysfunction, diabetes, liver disease. Okay? All of those symptoms happen to be the smoke to the fire. And we can either choose to put the fire out, okay, or we can keep taking our water and sprinkling it on the smoke, and the fire is going to keep getting out of control. Okay, I love it when people come on my lives and, let's do this. We're going to go ahead and remove this. Okay, this is why I share this. Okay, folks, when insulin stays high, your body is in storage mode. When insulin is low, your body is burning mode. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. When insulin comes down, your body's going to naturally start losing weight. Okay. Anxiety and depression, PCOS, infertility, all of these things are going to start improving. Okay. Now, how many of you even know that you have insulin resistance? How many of you didn't know? And I'll share this with you. If you have a doctor that is talking to you about insulin resistance, folks, hold on to that doctor, because the sad reality is that most medical professionals are not talking about insulin resistance. Some doctors don't even know what it is. So we're not talking about it, because if the reality is we diagnose, we treat the symptoms. That's what they do. What I'm teaching and educating people is how to improve and fix this. Okay. Now, it's crazy to think that 93% of our country has this, but they do. Okay. How many of you, okay, have a family member that is diabetic? Okay. How many of you think or know that you're pre-diabetic, right? Do you guys realize that if you happen to be diabetic, that your risk for cardiovascular disease, for heart attack, for stroke, it increases? Same with Alzheimer's and dementia. I have an 85-year-old mother, okay, and I miss my mom. I live in Arizona. My mom lives in a memory care facility in Tennessee, and her health is failing. She's on more than 24 meds, which is so crazy that people can be on so many meds and still not get better. You guys get what I'm saying, right? You guys realize that we spend more money in healthcare, okay? We are more medicated than any other country, and yet these chronic issues continue to get more out of control. We're not trying to fix the root cause. That's why. Folks, there's no money in helping you to be healthy. You guys realize that? You know, I have a doctor that, Sophie, thank you so much for being on here. I have a doctor that joined, and what's interesting is he said that there's a saying amongst the doctors, okay? If you're healthy or if you're dead, right? There's no money to be made. Do they make money when you eat or when you don't? Do they make money when when you're on this, when you take this because you're trying to lose weight? Okay. Is this all making sense? I hope it is. Okay. My hope and my prayer is that what I share helps people to avoid the same mistakes. Okay. Now, here's what I would tell you. Okay. If I had 90 days to save my liver, okay, this is exactly what I would do. The first thing that I would do is I would eliminate all sugary drinks. Okay. That includes juices and smoothies and sports drinks and maybe even sweetened coffees, right? Alcohol would be completely out. Because here's what happens: alcohol and sugar go both direct to your liver. And your liver can't improve when it is constantly processing sugar and alcohol. Does that make sense? The second thing that I would eliminate, okay, I would remove anything with high fructose corn syrup. This hides in your yogurt, your sauces, your jams, your ketchup. And the reality is that your liver actually processes fructose differently. And in excess, it is toxic, right? And by the way, fructose is like taking gasoline and throwing it on a fire. Okay, you've already got this fire that's burning out of control in our body because of this. Okay. And here's the other problem. Okay. Most of us have been taught to eat throughout the day. Some of you might be like, you know what? I'm eating smaller meals and I'm eating clean, and yet I'm still gaining weight. And for those that are just hopping on this live, okay, I'm talking about insulin resistance, which affects 93% of people. And what I teach is a way to help improve it without the need for meds or diets or crazy exercises. Okay. So the first thing, okay, I would eliminate all sugary drinks, okay? Juices, smoothie, sugar, coffee, things like that, okay? The second, I would remove anything that has fructose corn syrup, okay? And then third, I would prioritize omega omega 3 rich foods like salmon, walnuts, sardines, okay, along with foods that are rich in polyphenols, which is one of the reasons why I absolutely love this, because it is rich in that. Okay. If you've never heard of polyphenols, okay, it is something that helps to reduce inflammation and oxidative stress, especially in the liver. Okay. This is what improves this. And then fourth, here's what I would do. Okay. I would minimize the processed foods in industrial seed oils that we eat. Okay. Folks, the whole point of my live tonight is to help identify and help you understand what insulin resistance is. Because when you understand it, you can start connecting the dots to the health issues that you personally have. And when you can connect the dots, now we can start to find real solutions. Excuse me, we can find real solutions to the problem of insulin resistance. So, Sophie, that's what this live is about. Okay, this is one of the reasons why I love this chlorogenic tea. It is rich in polyphenols. Okay, and this chlorogenic tea matters, right? One supports liver healing. Okay, the other damages it. Okay, and this is when we are just taking in so much sugar. This is the problem that it causes us. Okay, now let me ask you guys a question. Okay, if 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy, okay, do you really think that this is about willpower or calories? Or do you think something deeper is broken? Okay. Anybody want to chime in? Put that in the chat if you want to take a guess at what that is. Okay. Folks, if there's anything that I want you guys to learn from this live, is that your body is not broken. Okay. I don't think that people are just intentionally lazy, right? I don't think people are weak, right? Especially to those that have insulin resistance. Okay. You were dealing with a metabolic environment that was unfortunately working against you. Remember this. This is key. When insulin is high, your body is storing FAT. When insulin comes down, you are burning FAT. Okay? That's it. That is literally basic biology. Okay? Now, the Feel Great system is not magic. It is not a crash diet, okay, at all. It is a way to finally address the root cause instead of chasing symptoms for the rest of your life. Folks, far too often we are just throwing meds at the symptoms that we have. That's kind of like having a leak in your ceiling and you're putting a bucket underneath it to catch the water, but you're not fixing the root cause. This is why I share this, okay? And folks, if this resonated with you, okay, feel free to tap the screen, share this, follow the page, right? I love talking about this, okay? Because again, I'm somebody who donated a kidney and I had no idea what insulin resistance even was. It nearly cost me everything to learn this. And this is why I get on here, because I know that this can make an impact. And my hope and my prayer is that this helps you to avoid making the same mistakes, okay? Now, Don, thank you for hopping on. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions that they want to throw in the chat? I've got just a few more minutes. I'm going to hop off. But for those of you, okay, if you are struggling with your health, if you are wondering when all of this is going to end, and by the way, there's a few books that I recommend. Okay. Dr. Benjamin Bickman, okay, he wrote this book called Why We Get Sick. Okay. He is a leading expert on insulin resistance in the world. Okay. Super smart. I've met him and Dr. Paul Reynolds a bunch of times. Okay. He's actually a professor at BYU. Here's another doctor, Dr. Robert Lustig. He wrote this book called Metabolical. Now, Dr. Lustig, he is a nutrition genius. Okay. He went to MIT. He's got a medical degree from Cornell. He's got a law degree, super smart. And he said that the number one fast food restaurant in the world, what do you think it is, folks? Type it in the chat. What do you think the number one fast food restaurant is in the world? Okay, and if anybody has ever read Dr. Robert Lustig's book, you'll know this answer. But what do you think is the number one fast food restaurant in the world? Put that in the chat. Drew, you've been on here before. You're absolutely right. Right, Dr. Lustig said that the number one fast food restaurant in the world is our public schools food system. Think about the hospital menus, even diabetic meal plans, right? They're loaded with refined carbs and ultra processed foods. So here's how simple this system that I use, which is here in the TikTok shop, okay? This is how simple this is. When I wake up in the morning, okay, I don't have coffee. I'm not having breakfast, okay? I literally mix this with about 20 to 30 ounces of water. Okay, I've got a big bottle here. And what I do is I sip on this yerba mate chlorogenic acid tea, okay? What's amazing is that, you know, it helps to support your body's natural GLP-1 production. You guys realize that there's millions of people around the world on these GLP-1 meds, right? How many of you have maybe utilized that to try and lose weight? And some of you might have lost a lot of weight. And then the reality is that when you stop taking it, or when your body gets used to it to the point to where it loses its effectiveness, guess what happens to all of these symptoms that you once had? They all come back. Folks, my dad passed away on Easter Sunday, 2017. Okay. I miss my dad. You know, this was his funeral information. And I carry this, I have this, it's a reminder of doing my part, right? I think, again, it's important for people to understand why it is that we have the health issues that we have, and most importantly, what we can do to fix it. Now, some of you might have heard Dr. Mindy Pelz before. She wrote, you know, Fast Like a Girl. And, you know, this is somebody that has a lot of respect for the body and its, you know, and its ability to improve insulin sensitivity. Okay, I've got to be very careful with my words so that I don't get restricted. But she literally talks about how and what we can do to start improving our health, just like all these other doctors, right? They're different authors, but they all have the same conclusion. And for any of you, if you are interested in these books, I've also linked them in the shop so that if you wanted to get those books and read it, you can. Okay, they're incredible books, and the things that they teach us is powerful. Okay, folks, going from stage 4 kidney disease to improving your health is pretty powerful. This is why I get on here every single day and talk about this. Because when you understand what's causing these health issues, and now you can connect the dots to what's actually causing it, now we can come and find solutions to a big problem. Okay? And if you want to have a big business or to make a big impact, you've got to be able to solve a big issue. And one of the biggest issues in the world today is our health. And the reality is, for the most part, it's not getting better. It's actually getting worse. Okay. So if this resonates with you, if it sounds like what you've been looking for and praying for, okay, you really don't have to wait to fix your health. I love talking about this every every Tuesday and every Thursday, right? Tuesdays we do a science call where people can come and learn the science behind what it is that we do, why it works so well. And I think it's so important to be educated because most people at the end of the day, we don't know what insulin resistance is. And most of you, when you're going to your doctor, this is where you're being blindsided by a diagnosis. And here's the thing, you literally can have insulin resistance for 10 to 20 years before it even leads to a diabetes diagnosis. And folks, I want you guys to know, I'm not here to convince you to buy the system that I use every day. There's no pressure. Okay? Education comes first. Okay? Folks, I love what this does for people because it works with your body and not against it. Now, I'm going to be on tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Okay, I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, 7 a.m. And I would love for a lot of you, if you're able to hop on this live tomorrow um, and to learn. And if there's people that you know that need to hear this, I would encourage you to share this live with them so that they can hop on and they can learn, right? Most people at the end of the day, we don't know what's causing our health issues. Most of us are literally chalking it up to the fact that you and I are getting older. Aging does not have to mean a slowing metabolism, okay? And so if any of you have any questions, you're welcome to connect. By the way, when you order the Feel Great system, okay, you will be connected to me, okay? I will send you information exactly how to use the system. Okay? It's because I think, that's going to help you be consistent. And consistency is key. Okay, if you can be consistent, this will not fail you. Okay, Juana Lorenzo, let me know if you have any questions. Folks, are there any questions that anybody has? Did I miss a question? If I did, please just let me know. This stuff is amazing. And I see that a couple people put this in the cart. Let me know if you have any questions in regards to it. Okay, I'm happy to help address. By the way, okay, when you are checking out, okay, make sure that you are putting the promo code FEELGTROY, okay, because that'll give you 25% off. Okay. Just making sure that I'm not missing any of these questions. And thank you so much for